It's still spooky season. After talking about some of the creepiest animated movies ever released, I felt like going back to live action for one more video this month. And what a perfect time to talk about one of my favorite movies from the Giallo genre, Dario Argento's 1977 classic, Suspiria. What I want to do in this video is not to review the movie overall, but instead talk about its fascinating origin, inspirations, and filmmaking prowess. All the elements that makes it one of the creepiest and weirdest movies of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Suspiria.
Morire, deve morire. Morte, morte, morte. Dolore, dolore. Morte. Io dico morte. Morte. Morte.
Suspiria follows Susie, a young lady who travels to Germany to attend ballet school. There, she slowly starts to realize that it might not be a normal school. After multiple murders, one including a friend of hers, Susie realizes that the school is actually run by witches. Director Dario Argento was already a big name by the time this movie came out in 1977. He had proven himself a master of the Italian Giallo genre with thrillers like The Bird with the Crystal Plumage in 1970 and Deep Red in 1975. But I believe with Suspiria, he really took the genre on a whole other level. Let me explain what I mean. I know every time I mention the term Giallo, most casual people get confused. But it's really just Italian's own version of slasher films. Slightly different in style and in the sense that it's a mix of supernatural horror and psychological thriller. They don't need to have supernatural element to be considered giallo, but the psychological thriller element is crucial for the genre, as proven by movies such as the 1963 film The Girl Who Knew Too Much, a film that cinephiles consider to be the very first film in the giallo genre, the one that started it all. But Dario Argento with Suspiria had a very different approach to the way he intended on scarring and scaring his audience with Suspiria. He threw realism out of the window in favor of a fairy tale aesthetic. Argento believed that mixing horror with a fairy tale atmosphere would give the film a deranged and twisted vibe because of the contrast between the visuals and the narrative. A movie that looked colorful and warm, but was at the same time filled with some of the most brutal murder scenes you will ever see. It's like if Wes Anderson made Friday the 13th, for example. When I first saw Suspiria, my first thought was that it felt a lot like a parody of a Disney animated film. And funny enough, I learned later that writer Daria Nicolodi took a lot of inspiration from Alice in Wonderland and Disney's Pinocchio when writing the script for this movie. And director Dario Argento's visual inspiration was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Argento was so obsessed with that visual idea that he made sure that cinematographer Luciano Tovoli saw the Disney film before making Suspiria. Argento was so clear about the vision he had for Suspiria that he was deeply involved in the making of the score as well, which is a crucial part of what makes this movie so creepy. I mentioned previously the beautiful contrast between fairy tale visuals and a twisted plot filled with murders, but one thing fairy tales sometimes don't get enough credit for, especially those old Disney films, is how they use sound to create frightening moments. Moments that could easily fit in a horror film, like this scene from Sleeping Beauty. And that's exactly how the score for Suspiria made me feel. It was like if the scene from Sleeping Beauty was bloody and stretched for 2 hours. To craft the music for this movie, Argento turned to the Italian band Goblin, who he had previously worked with on Deep Red. Argento wanted the score to sound like nothing heard in a film before, so the band developed innovative sounds using a variety of methods like the use of African drums and a Greek string instrument called a bouzouki. And then they got even crazier by squeezing plastic cups against the microphones to create echoing sounds, eating metal buckets full of water with hammers and incorporating disembodied voices. All that to create the score that sounds like a nightmare come to life. Just like Argento's other movies like Tenebrae, Suspiria also contains some brutal murder scenes that, to be honest, have aged better than most movies of the same era, especially the first murder. Although Suspiria suffers sometimes narratively and the script is not as tight as it should be, Its exceptionally crafted creepy scenes give the movie everything that it needs to stand out. The mythology behind the school is interesting but a little bit too vague to enhance the plot in any way. And I know a lot of people have criticized Suspiria for being devoid of any emotion and for being kind of pointless and confusing at the end. But I always felt like that was the wrong way of looking at this film. I believe Suspiria to be simply Dario Argento bringing his own personal nightmare to life, creating this vibrant world of beautiful chaos, or like Argento himself refers to it, a fairy tale for adults. In 2018, director Luca Guadagnino released his remake of Argento's film. It's pretty much the same story, but the movies couldn't be more different. The 2018 version gives a lot more emphasis on the characters. We spend a lot more time with the teachers and students, and there's a lot more story to it. I like the movie for different reasons, but while it works a little better narratively, I feel like the original is a lot scarier because of its emphasis on atmosphere and tone. The remake relies a lot more on body horror, which is not a bad thing. I mean, the original is extremely violent as well. However, Argento's Suspiria stays with you more. And that's not because of its graphic violence, but more because of the overall feel of the movie. A movie that was manufactured and created to unsettle its viewers consciously but also subconsciously. That is what makes Suspiria one of the scariest movies ever made.